I actually started doing that kind of searching around for really long waves in the beginning of stand-up paddling because it turned out that's a great vehicle for catching and riding waves that maybe aren't that great on a normal surfboard. Windsurfing, kitesurfing, you can ride a wave forever because you're powered by the wind, so it's a bit different. It's kind of cheating. But on a stand-up, it was like, wow, this really is a great tool to find waves and ride them really as far as possible because you can carry it across the flats. You can catch the wave really early. And so I started toying with it a few years ago. I went and did some tidal bores. For example, in France, I rode a tidal bore, and in Brazil, rode a tidal bore. But then you're going, 7-8 miles on a wave. But it doesn't really count because it's a tidal bore, not a real wave. And so we started looking around the world for different real waves that were rideable. And that kind of set us on the trajectory of if I were going to make a documentary film or be involved with it, because people had been asking me for years and I was always pushing it away, not really ready. The time wasn't there for me to start being retrospective. I'm always looking forward and looking for the new challenge, and I thought that would just get in the way. It finally digested to the point where I said, okay, maybe I'm ready to do this. If we can do it without making a traditional sports film of, hey, look at me, aren't I great? A helicopter filming me, and typical action porn. That if I was going to do it, I wanted something different. Yeah. And that's where Red Bull Films, put a list of directors together, and Joe Berlinger came on board. And I saw what he had done. He had never done a sports documentary. Was really into heavy, deep, complicated storylines in his documentary filmmaking. And I said, well, here's a guy that will clearly do something different, unexpected, out of the box. And we met, determined that we were both interested, which was great, and decided that theme of the longest wave was something that we could at least latch onto and try and use as a thread to create a story about who I am and where I came from and where I'm going. And then a whole bunch of hurdles happened in the process of making the film that made it even more than just a sports documentary. Well, like I said, I've had a really long, lucky career. I was in the right place at the right time many times over, and I've been able to reinvent myself. And you get to a point in life where time at a certain age becomes a real commodity. And when you have hurdles in your life or hardships, struggles, injuries as an athlete, it really changes your perspective of time. And this was, in the process of making the film, my first real injury in 40 years of competing as a pro. I broke my pelvis doing a kite surfing photo shoot. Landed really hard and fast. One foot went with the board, one foot stayed in the water, slipped off the back of the board, and I basically broke myself in half. And so I had what's called an open book fracture of the pelvis, quite bad. So I've got a titanium plate in the front with 4 screws holding the front of my pelvis together. And that kind of stopped everything for the movie for a while because I was out of the water for 6 months for the first time ever. That healed, started getting going again, and then I broke my foot really badly, exactly 1 year later, doing the same basic photo shoot, kite surfing, the product line for the next year, and broke the metatarsals in my right foot really badly. And the doctor said, this is going to be a long one. And I thought, it's going to be a couple of weeks. This is minor. But it ended up being like 7 months before I could get my foot back in a foot strap again. And during that time, I started a divorce that took basically the entire length of the film, about 4 years as well, and had some business issues and just a lot of personal stuff going on for the first time ever while there were cameras pointed at me trying to make this documentary. So it was challenging, but the end result is something, deeply personal and real. And for the people that know me, there is a side of me that they've never seen before. And for people that have never heard of me, don't know who I am, there's hopefully some, compelling stories there, something they can relate to, something hopefully inspirational, whether they're young or old, young people looking at following their dreams and working really hard and staying focused can really work. And for older people to realize that you can get old and still deal with challenges and hurdles and fall down and get back up, brush yourself off, that you're never too old to have fun. You can be 40, 50, 60, and you can still learn new things and get out there and play and, be a kid. You don't always have to grow up as you grow old to a certain degree. That people should remember that having fun and playing is still super important no matter how old they are, and I'm kind of a good example of that. Well, I've been through, in my career, a whole lot of generations of new guys that have kind of come and gone and come and gone. I've been doing this a long time, fortunately. And some of the crew that's with me in the film are guys that I've been with for a long time. Chuck Patterson is one of the guys featured in the movie. He's now 50. He's been around a long time as well, but he still lives like a 21-year-old. Literally, he just wakes up in the morning and surfs and skis and, is living that lifestyle day in and day out. Kai Lenny is another one. He was on my team. I've known him since he was 8 years. Well, I've known him since he was born, but I sponsored him from the time he was about 8 years old. He's now 27, and there's a lot of sort of evolution of our relationship through the film, where he had been with me and my brand since he started. Became many-time world champion in stand-up paddling with my brand. And then during the course of the film, we kind of parted ways professionally. We're still friends, but he had to move on a sponsorship level to other pastures. And that was kind of a challenge during the filmmaking as well, losing a kid that you had kind of nurtured from the very beginning and kind of setting him off on his own. And that plays a role in the film, both personally and professionally as well, which is interesting. In all honesty, I'm not usually looking for the next thing. They just kind of happen. They've all just kind of happened through, you're doing this and you see that and you try this, and I've kind of meandered my way from one sport to another through natural sort of evolution of the development of the sports. And the latest one is the hydrofoiling, which shows up in the film, and that's kind of segued to wingsurfing, which is growing crazy fast at the moment. You see a glimpse of it in the very end of the movie, which is a very simple handheld inflated wing, like a kite surfing wing, but you hold it. There's no line and bars. You're holding the actual inflated wing. And at the moment, it's being picked up by surfers and foilers and kiters and windsurfers all over the world as kind of the next new, really simple, pure sense of foiling. Basically like using the wind and the water-powered thing in its simplest form, and really having a lot of fun with it at the moment. The equipment's developing really fast. What we can do on the water with the things is really developing fast. It's super cool.